Jack here at JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. In this Pro Tips we're looking at tricks, techniques and ideas used by George Lynch to get his distinctive outside sound. I'll be using licks to outline the various techniques so you've got a point of reference for every single one. Now this was originally just going to be a quick trick, so I was just going to look at one or two things, but admittedly I went a bit overboard with my research. I then thought about kind of trying to make a top 10, but it seems somewhat arbitrary because a lot of the techniques overlap. So this lesson is still very much split into sections, but there is an awful lot of overlap between the techniques and the ideas used. So this one was actually a requested lesson. Sorry if anyone else asked and I've not found your comment, but just leave one below instead. But yeah, I'm very much open to requests and suggestions, so please do let me know if you have any. It does sometimes take me a little while to get around to them depending on what I've got on, what I'm planning to do, but I am very much open to them. Anyway, that's more than enough talking, let's get on with the lesson already. Left hand semitone slides. Now he'll do these with the tone sometimes as well, but the semitone is definitely more of a trademark. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, I'm sliding into this trill from a semitone below. In this lick I'm using the blues note. Lynch will also tend to use the flat third to major third. And it's worth noting he'll use this technique on other fairly random notes for an outside sort of sound. I've rounded the lick up with some pinch harmonics and a first finger bend. He'll also do whammy bar dips on these types of licks, or bend them slightly for a microtonal sound. 4 secret Lynch bonus tricks right off the bat there. And here it is slowed down. Another way that you'll slide into notes is at the end of a group, like this. Again, I'm using the blues note, playing it here rather than here, and returning to it for some more tension. This lick goes from sort of minor to major, but keeps in that blues note. A standard bend, then the previous semitone slide lick we looked at, only this time alternate between the slide at the 4th and the 5th, and the 8th and the 9th. The 8th and 9th slide go in between the minor and the major 7th. George Lynch will tend to use his little finger for these slides, but just do whatever is easiest for you. Ending on the blues note for a real bit of crunch. Subsequently, that is secret bonus trick number 5, resolving a lick by ending on the blues note. Now I'm not planning to go too far into his tone here, but from what I could gather, a humbucker guitar, fairly hot output with a fair bit of treble, mainly using the bridge pickup, overdrive used as a lead boost, something along the lines of a Tube Screamer 808, just for a bit more volume and dirt. The MX Phase 90 seems to pop up from time to time, and he's got this signature Zoom multi-effects pedal, which seems to act mainly as a modeler for kind of tones that he's used across the various albums. And he's got his Randall Lynch Box module. So delays are fairly prominent, particularly in his live work, not so much in the studio, and a Plexi Marshall seems to be his amp of choice for the most part. I'll try and post some Thomman, never too sure how to pronounce that. Anyway, links for these projects down in the descriptions, although just to be clear, I've not used any of these in the videos, and also links to rig rundowns and that sort of thing pinned in the comments as well. George Lynch will frequently incorporate open strings into his leads, sometimes regardless of key, so it's often more for an effect or aesthetic than traditional melodic purposes. You might notice a semitone slide here as well, this time going between the flat third and the third. Again, I've resolved to the blues note, but this time hammering on from nowhere. Bonus trick number 6, using hammers from nowhere to avoid string skipping or get a hollower sound from the note. Not his most frequent trick, but tends to get used more when he's finger picking rather than using the plectrum. Anyway, here it is slowly. All these examples will be in A, and I'll link to some jam tracks up there and down in the comments as well if you want something to play along with. Big stretches. So instead of playing on one string and only moving a semitone, Mr. Lynch decides to make life more difficult for everyone involved by spreading it across 2 strings. Like that. You notice it actually does sound a bit different if you play it on one string. Simply because the strings have a slightly different timbre or tonal quality from each other, particularly a wound string to an unwound, like here where we go from the wound D to the unwound G. This lick goes between the flat third and the second, and then we have the infamous semitone slide going between the 5th and the 6th, just to highlight other intervals that you can use it on. ending on the second for a kind of melancholic finish. There's quite a lot of music theory and music terminology spattered about this video for those of you that appreciate that and that helps your learning process and that sort of style of analysis. If you don't get it, just listen for the sounds, and if anything doesn't make sense, please leave a comment, or if you want me to do a video on music theory, let me know. Anyway, here's another stretchy example, this time using the same shape on different strings. Secret bonus trick number 7, symmetrical shapes. A good example of the sort of thing George Lynch might speed pick. I think he calls this the Gothic octave, but it's really just an interesting fingering for the Hirajoshi scale. I've covered this in lessons before, so I'll put a card up there if you want to check it out. It's probably most commonly associated with Marty Friedman in terms of metal or hard rock. Over an A backing, you could also use A as the root, so it's exactly the same shape, but just playing it a tone lower. So there's that slide at the top what they've seen before, and there's also secret bonus trick number 8, same note on a different string. So we've got the 16th fret on the G, it's the same as the 12th on the B. And we've also got the 17th on the B, it's the same as the 12th on the E. Quite similar to Steve Vai, there's a card up there if you want to check out my Vai tricks lesson. Okay, just a really quick note to say that Lynch's playing is heavily based in the blues, and I think he'd be the first to admit that, hence the major-minor interchange and of course the blues note. But the exotic licks really seem to be much more worthwhile area to explore, because that's really, to me, where his unique sound comes from. A largely pentatonic lick, but using the flat 6, that 22nd fret there, for some sinister, scary vibes. Also using displaced triplets for a more disjointed feeling, a displacement card on the top right if you want to learn more about that. And here it is slowed down. You might have noticed a semitone across different strings. Again, here just like we had a few licks back, and these last two examples where they use the same shape to stay in key, we can also use it to go out of key. Bonus trick 8.5. But rather than just playing across the strings, let's add in some of the other techniques we've looked at as a bit of a recap. So let's put in first finger bending, pinches, semitone slide, open strings, chromatics, major and minor third, blues note, resolving to the 9, and some muted legato for bonus tip number 9. At this rate, I'll break the bonusometer. Some straight ahead blues vibes that's just masked in pinches galore, an open string, some muted legato or more aptly those muted trills, and then I make use of the same shape across different strings, getting it sort of Phrygian dominant sound but with this flat third in it as well. And for more on Phrygian dominant, check out my Ingve card up there if you want to do that. And then I'm doing a semitone slide with my little finger, I'm resolving down to the 9, and here it is slowed down. We've still got a fair few licks to go, but hopefully this is a bit of an insight into some of the many ways in which you can combine these separate ideas into licks, melodies, or even a solo. Okay, that's been pretty full on, so let's just slow it down a bit. We'll just talk about his sound a little bit, his tone, using Dokken's Mr. Scary as an example. Now I mentioned pinch harmonics near the start of this lesson, and I'm going to embellish on that just now and talk about partial pinches, which are prominent in Lynch's playing, particularly on the lower strings. Just make some kind of pop and growl with some attitude. I'd hypothesise this is due to Lynch's pick grip, so that you'll get partial pinches without really trying that hard. It's more noticeable live in the studio. Now I'm not 100% sure how Georgie Boy plays this riff. You can alternate pick it and then try to get upward pinches. Lesson card up there if you want more information on that. What I'm doing is sort of arching over the A string. So I'm doing it down here, doing an up down, and then try to get over the A. It seemed to work for me. On the topic of things I mentioned at the start of the video, let's look at its most common whammy bar move, other than the straightforward vibrato, the bar dip. Here I've applied the bar dip to a variation on that first lick. You'll also notice I'm going to the major 7th, that 9th fret there, again just highlighting some different flavours. So this bar dip's probably more microtonal than a semitone. But for the double dip before going down, that would ideally be a semitone. You can add in more vicious bar shake for a more exotic sound, but here it is slowed down. And here's one going up the scale. Depending on your guitar's set up, you might want to pick some of these notes or play it all legato. Another thing to consider is hammering on the last note from nowhere for that kind of cool hollow sound. Next up, vertical vibrato or sliding vibrato. I've done a more extensive lesson on this, so check that out for more of an analysis. I've run out of cards at this point, so I'll put a link down in the comments and description, but yet, vertical vibrato. Being a lead guitarist in a band in the 80s, tapping is inevitable, so here's some tapping licks just for good measure. We've already looked at the left hand semitone slides, but we've not done any with the right hand, so let's rectify this grave injustice. Now I know I've been prattling on about it a bit, but the semitone slide really is a big part of his sound, and here I've just gone to town adding in all sorts. I've got the major 7 to the root, minor to major 7, and even a root to flat 9. So let's slow it down. So at this point I've almost exhausted the semitone slide, so let's slide but beyond a semitone. Let's make it diminished sound as well, because that is very much part of Lynch's vocabulary. Rather than being a standard 3-string diminished sweep, which Lynch will use from time to time, this is using the diminished whole half scale. And here's another diminished styled lick with trills just for good measure. Both of these licks will work best over an A diminished or A minor 7 flat 5, but you can get away with playing them over an A5 if you just want to create some dissonance. Anyway, here's that second one to slow it down. Now, it's not all that often that Lynch uses an augmented scale, but just to add one final bonus trick in there, here's that final lick, and you want to use the technique from my Paul Gilbert's terrifying triplet technique video for this one, again link down in the comments, but you basically pick the G string and then hammer on the B. And you can probably guess what's happening now, it's the same lick, slowed down. Okay, pop quiz time. What Lynch tricks did you spot in that one? I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, for a hint, there's at least 5 of them. Time's up. Got big stretch, same note but different string, same shape across different strings, right hand tapping slides, and the whammy bar dip. Wow, okay, well that's an awful lot to digest. Now this is the sort of one that as a student, as a learner, I'd probably come back to and just kind of do chunk at a time. But the main points to recap everything: you've got your semitone slide using both hands, harmonic pick attack or partial pinches and also full-on pinches, out notes, both typical blues ones and some more adventurous ones too, open strings and same note different string, big stretches, symmetrical shapes, the vertical sliding vibrato and some whammy bar dips too. Cool. So thanks a lot if you're still with me. It really makes these longer videos seem much more worthwhile to do if I know they're a benefit to you guys. This one took a whole whack of research because I wasn't too familiar with George Lynch's playing. I picked up some really cool ideas to steal though, which is always a good thing. Anyway, any other suggestions or players to look at, please do let me know. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, do consider to subscribe, check out other videos in the series, like, comment, share, and enable notifications with that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.